All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Missionaries Moms and Mondays. It is our favorite day because it's our day we get to interview a new fun guest to the Missionaries family here with Maryanne. Maryanne Asay is a dear friend and someone who I'm really excited to introduce you to today. So, first and foremost, Maryanne, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Marianne's had two missionaries of her own that are returned, so she's on the back side of the mission quadrant, and a grandma of two, so she's got two potential future missionaries roaming around in that house of hers right now. Also, a former elementary school teacher, which just tells us eons about this woman's capacity to have patience and tolerance for our children, because she was in the fifth grade for a lot of years and now is the director of education at the nonprofit that really focuses on these amazing emotional tools that we teach even here on Missionaries Moms and Mondays. So, Maryanne, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Glad to be here.
The question we're going to focus on today is, what do I do if my missionary feels stuck because their comp does not want to go to work? And painfully, we hear this one a lot. And so, when one side of the companionship is eager to go to work and the other side is not so eager to go to work for whatever reason, maybe they're sick, maybe they're tired, maybe they're trunky, maybe they've just been out there a long time, whatever the reasons might be, when one side wants to go to work and the other side doesn't, whew, it can create some real struggle. So, Maryanne, you've had two missionaries. The likelihood of this one coming up at some point is pretty high. Start with some words of wisdom for us. What have you experienced with this and where did you go with it?
My daughter, serving her mission, she had a companion that just decided she was done. She didn't want to be there. She didn't want to teach. She didn't even want to do anything on P days. Like she didn't want to go explore, or it was a challenge to get her to leave the apartment.
Mm.
And it was really hard for me as a mom to be so far away and not be able to help. So I understand that feeling. And she served before we could do phone calls. So this
Oh,
was all over emails that happened just once a week. So it was a little bit of a challenge, but I talked with my daughter just this morning again and said, let's just remember what it was like and what did I do that was helpful and what did I do that was not. The biggest piece was that I just listened. And that's probably my biggest piece of advice is to just listen without judgment of the companion, without judgment of how your missionary is handling it, but to be able to just listen and to allow them to express their concerns without jumping directly into fix it mom mode. And so being able to let her share her concerns was really valuable.
Marianne, super powerful that we listen. And I know that this is a skill set of yours, so I wouldn't put everybody on the spot here. And I am going to put you on the spot for this one. I know you're an active listener and that the idea of listening is something that you've studied and actually become incredibly good at. So I want to talk about, what does it look like for moms to listen differently? So I've watched moms that listen just to hear and just let them talk, get it out. But then there's also moms who listen and just try to validate. I'm just going to validate everything that comes out of their mouth. I'm just going to validate it. And then there's listening to affirm. And these things are a little bit different. Can you tell us a little bit about how you listen and maybe how moms can do a little better job in this space to help their kids and understand the emotions?
Yeah. Well, first, I think that just listening is valuable. There is value in that because often we're trying to listen like, okay, now how can I respond? How can I give solution? How can I give them ideas? And so just listening without talking is a first really great step there. Listening with validating is like, oh, yeah, that's hard. Oh, yeah, I understand. It's validating what they're saying and being able to, it's kind of responding back in a way that doesn't take away from what they're saying. But there's also the affirming, which is much more difficult to do in some ways, but it's also so much more comforting as the person speaking, because then you know people are actually listening to you, that you're actually being heard. And the affirming comes by repeating back what they say. So if I'm understanding right, what you're saying is, or reflecting that back, or oh, I haven't had that experience before of having a companion, but I know sometimes it's been really hard for me when people aren't showing up the way I want them to show up, how is that making you feel? And helping them to identify what they're feeling, helping them to look a little bit deeper in the emotions they're experiencing, in how they're interpreting things, and how they're actually looking at the whole picture. Because if all they're doing is letting it out, it's not helping them move to find their own solutions. Because often when we listen actively and affirm with some validation there, of course, then we're helping them find the solution more than giving them the solution. Being
Yeah,
able,
I think it's so important for us to realize that just hearing something, to your point, even just letting them talk, there's value in that.
Mhm.
Validation validation is good, and affirmation so much better, because sometimes with validation, sometimes we're just validating the situation, and because we
Mhm.
don't know what to say, it sometimes comes across as we're supporting the dogmatic position that they're in.
We're
And
supporting their anger, their frustration, and you can acknowledge that because those are valid and real. But to your
yeah,
point, affirming takes it the next step.
it does, because they go to a level of actually feeling understood, not just heard.
Mhm.
And that makes a difference. It makes a difference for somebody to actually feel like, "Wow, you actually just heard me." And not to a level where you just heard and parroted it back, or heard and agreed with me, but you actually heard and asked questions that led me to feel like you wanted to understand how I feel and where I'm at. And there's so much power in that. So I love that first tip, listening, and listening on purpose with some affirmation in there. You mentioned you had spoken to your daughter about the things that you had done well, the things that you had not done well, listening being number one. What else showed up in that conversation with your daughter?
One of the things that I think is really valuable is before we offer help is to ask permission, to get their permission for us to even give that help. For example, I might say, "Would you mind if I shared some suggestions with you?" Or is "Hey, do you want to share with me what you've tried? If you don't mind, I can share with you some other thoughts I have." Because I think that permission allows them the freedom to say, "Actually, I just want you to listen today." And it also allows them to not feel like you're giving them what they need to do or telling them what they need to do. Because being told what to do automatically, especially, I don't know why it is for teens and young adults, it's like, don't tell me what to do. I know what to do. But if we're giving space for that permission, it can be really valuable. So I think that permission of asking them if you can share suggestions, ideas might be, or even asking them what they've already tried. Because even those kinds of questions could be, without permission, could be seen as kind of persecutorial, or
Right.
that
Yeah.
that I'm gonna jump in and fix this for you, and that's not the case.
Yeah. And I think some people worry, ooh, is that going to be awkward if it's going to be awkward if I just don't know how to, like, do I hold back? Do I not hold back? When do I speak? When do I not speak? When do I offer help? When do I not? One question that I've learned to ask that has helped me a lot is to hear the information and then go in for that affirmation, right? Where it's
Mhm,
I can hear the frustration in your voice. I haven't experienced that myself, and I don't know exactly what that feels like. Tell me what that feels like for you. I can go through that affirmation.
mhm,
It usually, if in those moments I can say something like, "How can I show up best for you right now?
mm,
Do you
mhm.
just need someone to hear you? Because I'm here for that. You can lay it on me. Would you like to talk through it and see if together we can come up with some solutions? Because I'm here for that. I'm all in on a brainstorm.
Oh, I
Would you
love
like to
those.
hear some previous experiences that I have had that might relate to your situation? Maybe they give you a moment of inspiration, because I'm here for that. I'm here for wherever it is, I can best show up for you. So you tell me, what do you need most today? And just sometimes going in that space just allows them to always feel the freedom to come and have that conversation with us, and always know that when they come, there is room for the vent. If I
Mhm.
just need to vent it out, there's room for that. There's room for the brainstorm, and there's room to hear story and to hear experience. So I love the prompt to ask for permission, and some really great ideas on how to do that and how to really show up for our kids. So
Right,
beautiful.
right.
All right,
Because
what else
saying,
did you guys come up with?
well, I was just gonna go back to that point of whenever we say "you should," we're trying to take ownership of that, and it's not ours to own as moms.
Mhm.
Like telling them what they should do, as opposed to have you thought of this option, or what have you already tried? And then I love your suggestion, just giving them space to let them know how they want you to show up that day.
Such a good reminder to not use the should word, right?
Mhm.
'Cause
Mhm.
you're right, that does come across as very persecutorial. 'Kay, really
Mhm.
good one. I'm writing that one down, that's a good one. No shoulds.
No
It's important.
shoulds.
Very good.
Yeah.
Alright,
And
what else did you guys come up with together as you talked with your daughter?
well, as we sat together, I said, "What were the things that you actually tried? Like, here are some practical things as a missionary who felt trapped in her apartment." And so, if they do want your suggestions, your help, some of the things that we came up with, or that she tried, or that we suggested for her, she spent time on language study. She was a Spanish speaking missionary. She hadn't been out for very long, so she put extra effort into her language study. She did extra effort into her gospel study. They had area books, which I know it looks different. She spent a lot of time going through the area book and cleaning it up, making phone calls, trying to make appointments. And a missionary now could spend a bit of that time doing social media missionary work, doing Facebook missionary work. So the missionary work doesn't have to stop just because you're stuck in the apartment. There are ways to do that. And I think COVID showed us there's a whole bunch of ways to do it from your apartment. But the missionary work does not have to stop. It just looks different.
Great ideas. Also, another idea that I have heard that also have had personal experience with is taking that time to write letters to friends and family at home, and not from a standpoint of just, hey, what's going on back home, shooting the breeze, and instead an opportunity to share your progress, your journey, and your testimony with them. So when our missionaries write those letters and send them home, in an email. Could be an email, could be a letter. Just take a minute to write. I know a lot of missionaries can only write emails on P Day, so that's why I use the term letters because they
Mhm.
may need to pull out a pen and physically write the letter and mail it. We're seeing power in the lives of those who receive them. And I think it's interesting, we're called on missions to certain areas, and that setting apart blessing does not have boundaries
Mhm.
that are tied to a culture or a people that are within a mile radius. That calling and setting apart and ability to declare that Jesus is the Christ crosses thresholds and boundaries. And I have seen more missionary work done by missionaries in the field to their friends and family back home that is remarkable. I have a nephew that is on a mission right now, largely because his good friend spent time every week writing him and declaring the gospel to him. And now he's serving a mission and just had his first baptism. And there is missionary work that can be done everywhere. We just have to get a little bit more creative when it gets a little bit harder. So
Mhm.
I love these suggestions of study and extra effort and the phone calls and the cleanup. And it's find a way to be a missionary that doesn't look traditional, like two of us going out the door, right?
Mhm. Right. You just remind me of Elder Stevenson gave a talk called Love, Share, and Invite. And that's really what you're doing. That's why you're on your mission, is to love, share, and invite. And that's done. I love the idea of writing the letters, of being a missionary with whatever your circumstances at that time. And that love, share, and invite also applies to your companion
Mm,
who doesn't want to work, right? There's that love, share, and invite piece.
yeah.
The other thing we talked about was being really honest with your mission president, that
Mm.
you don't need to share all the feelings you're having necessarily, but she was very careful to share the facts with her mission president. She wasn't trying to rescue or protect her companion from what she was going through. And she also wanted the mission president to know we didn't leave the house today till 2. And when we were teaching, she didn't say a word. We were back in our apartment by 6, just to be able to share with him so that he understood.
There's power in sharing fact.
Mhm.
I think it feels a little, we grow up and it's like, ooh, you're tattletelling. And there's a vibe out there. I've had this conversation with my son. Don't want to tell on the other elders, right? There's a difference between telling and
Mhm.
sharing
Yep.
facts that are important for mission presidents who are called and set apart to help and to serve these missionaries. Sometimes there's something going on that's under the surface that maybe they don't want to share with us as their companion that they might share with the mission president, or perhaps the mission president knows something that he cannot share, that having information can make the difference. So, love the idea. And if there's a discomfort there, sharing facts. It's not my opinion about what's going on. It's not how I feel
Yep.
about what's happening. It's we left the home at 2, we came back at 6, and there wasn't a lot of teaching that went on. That's the facts of our day.
Yep.
And I think there's some power in that because it allows you to your point, not rescue from a situation and also not try to be persecutor to her or cause problems, just laying it out there. So
Yep.
I love that. Love that tip.
And yeah. You've talked about Maslow's in some of your earlier episodes about our needs and making sure our needs are met. And I think that's another thing to consider for your missionary who's has a companion who won't work. Are there things that aren't being met for that missionary? Are they not getting sleep? Are they not eating properly? Are they struggling with not getting the sunlight they need? What are those basic needs and are they being met to be able to see if you could help the companion with those? Because that's very much a possibility. If you don't feel
Oh,
good, you don't want to go out, and then it just spirals and escalates.
yeah, so much. And there's power in the simplicity of just looking at those fundamental needs. I
Hmm.
got the most fabulous little message from one of our missionaries that has gone through many of these trainings and the videos that we've been putting out in the help. And she sent me a message. She said, Natty, you're going to be so proud of me. My companion was just struggling so much and was so sad. And so I told her, I scheduled an appointment for 9 a.m. And her companion said, I can't do it. I can't get out of bed. And she said, I scheduled the appointment with you.
Mm.
They went for a walk together. They went and got, she knew what her favorite drink was. It's an area drink, a local cultural drink. And she took her to get a little drink and they walked together and had a drink and took in some sunshine and went back to their apartment and did a little extra, just personal study and conversation time together. And she said, then we sat down, we took some deep breaths, and we had some conversation. And she said, she perked right up. And she said it was amazing what just giving her a little attention to her needs did. And so I absolutely agree that there is power in understanding that without our needs being met, we really can't feel safe. And when there's a lack of safety, there's often a lack of any form of motivation to do anything. And
Mhm.
so there can for sure be some power in just those little needs being met. So thank
Yeah.
you for reminding us of the power of that.
And I think for the missionaries who's feeling stuck to assess their needs.
Yes.
What do they need? Because there can be a spiral there that happens. My daughter said her companion would agree to go to the church on P day, and she would lay on the couch, and my daughter would just run sprints around the gym. She
Mm.
needed that regulation piece for her. She's an athlete, active, and needed that. So it can be really powerful.
Yeah. Both needs are equally important, yours and your companions.
Yeah. Yep, but not
Honor
to
them
ignore
both.
that.
Yeah.
And the other thing that my daughter said that it was so beautiful is she said, I was kind to her. I struggled with her. I didn't even like her at the time, but I was kind to her. And I think that can be super powerful tool in that hard time. And as moms, we want to speak poorly of someone that's hurting our child, right? Or that's making
Mhm.
our child uncomfortable. But that's super important for us too. I used to teach my fifth graders this little quote that kindness is in our power, even when fondness isn't.
Mm.
So if we can't change that feeling of feeling really fond for them, we still have the power, we still have the control of showing kindness. So that was really powerful when she said that. I thought, okay. But as moms, not to criticize or speak poorly of them, not to jump in on the mudslinging. If our
Yeah.
missionary needs to get that out, that's fine, but I'm not
Yeah.
gonna join in that.
Well, I think there's 2 things that come to mind with that. One is that President Nelson, on multiple occasions now, has reminded us to be peacemakers.
Yep.
And so the difference here of fondness versus kindness. I really appreciate that because there's an opportunity for me to show up as a peacemaker. That doesn't mean that I'm trying to fake that I am love this person
Mhm.
right now. I'm simply choosing to control my behavior towards them, which is powerful. And it's a good first step as we build to try to love them. I think the second thing that that reminded me of is that the individuals in our lives, everybody has a story. And so many times we just don't actually know the story.
Mhm.
And so we respond based on what we're experiencing. And we learned that there are things that happen, like we can all experience the same event. We're both on the same mission, in the same space, in the same place, teaching the same people, eating the same food, speaking the same language, living in the same apartment. And yet the effect that that's having on us and the evaluation that we're having of that experience for ourselves, not even close to the same. And so, because we're going through the same thing, we often expect people to respond the same way. And that's just not how it works. We process differently. And so, it can be challenging to not judge people based on, I am going through this exact same thing. If we can take a step back and realize we are going through the same event, and we are not living through the exact same experience because of the way it's impacting us and the way that we're internalizing it. It's different. And there's power in that as well. So many beautiful tips here, Marianne. What else have you got for us? We'll keep digging.
Well, something you said just sparked. In Alma, there's verses, just a couple verses apart, that one says, because of the exceedingly great length of the war, their hearts were softened. And a couple verses later, because of the exceedingly great length of the war, their hearts were hardened. It's not the circumstance,
Mm,
it's how, where we are, how we see it, how we choose to respond, that can be really the difference
yeah,
there.
that is that that one just hit so hard, Marianne. That was beautiful. It really brought the spirit. I think again, President Nelson has
Mhm.
reiterated on more than one occasion the joy we feel has little to do with the circumstances of our life and everything to do with the focus. And when our focus is on the enduring pain, when our focus is on what in the world is wrong with my companion, when the focus is on I'm stuck in this apartment, when the focus is on I can't move and I can't teach and I can't, when the focus is on all the things we can't do, unfortunately, we miss seeing all the things we can do. And we allow ourselves to just be pulled down into that misery and become hard hearted. And yet, there is opportunity to find grace and mercy and control and focus and peace if that chooses to be our focus. So, beautiful teaching.
And the focus of, what does the Lord have in store for me? Or what lesson does the Lord want to teach me right now? Or what lesson can the Lord teach me right now? What am I willing to open my heart and my soul up to learn from the Lord? Because there's a piece of humility there that can be super powerful in that circumstance that you can't control. Again,
Mm.
because of the exceedingly great frustration of my companion, right? My heart was hardened and I was angry, or because of the frustration with my companion, or because my companion wouldn't work, I turned to the Lord and found out how much He loves me and how much He cares about me individually and has something special for me to learn through this hard time. Like that's an opportunity that we have too within our control. So,
Yeah. Mm. Very true. Very true.
um,
Preach, sister. All right. Any other words of wisdom you want to share with us before we conclude?
well, a couple of thoughts. One other thing is to be careful not to compare as a
Mm.
companion, not compare how that companion is acting compared to me. I mean, there's a lot of pride that could show up there. Or even the comparing of, well, that companionship in my district, they're doing this and I'm not, that comparison is a struggle. C.S. Lewis said, pride gets no pleasure out of having something, only out of having more of it than the next man. It is a comparison that makes you proud, the pleasure of being above the rest. And once the element of competition is gone, pride has gone. So there's no competition on a mission. And that would be especially true in this, that God is only comparing what we're doing against ourselves. That's the only measuring stick, not
Yeah.
against what other people are accomplishing.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. There is a concept, right, that God knows all things from beginning to end. So if he in fact called you on this mission and you believe that, and he called you to this area and you believe that, then it's very likely he knew you would have this companion
Hmm.
in this situation. And he is not putting you in that situation to judge how much you don't get done compared to what he thought you could have done. He's putting you in that situation for progression. I loved one of the talks in General Conference that talked about church callings. But the essence of the talk was, are we a culture of progression or a culture of performance? And
Oh,
in these situations, I think the concept is that we are a doctrine of progression. And if progression looks like learning for myself how to be in a hard situation and stay focused and stay faithful and stay happy regardless of circumstance, well, that's pretty darn good progression and it will benefit them for the rest of their life, even if that's what that progression looks like. Because remember, they're serving a mission we serve missions for ourselves as well as everyone else.
well, and it's really not about us.
Hmm.
It's not about me. It's about testifying of Jesus Christ. It's
Hmm.
kind of that who I am. Who am I? I'm a disciple of Jesus Christ. And with that, we can move forward. And there's a piece that, back to the love, share, and invite, that your love, share, and invite can come with your companion, right? That the love and sharing and inviting. Elder Stevenson talked about that sharing, that we do it expecting nothing in return. Our hope, of course, is they will accept our love and our message, though how they react is not within our control. What we do and who we are certainly are. So I think that's the biggest takeaway, is like, I have the power and the control and the agency to show up as a disciple of Jesus Christ every day with love, with courage, with hope, and I can share and invite, even inviting my companion to engage in the work. And if not, still the Lord's work, still
Yeah.
your mission as a disciple of Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Mm. So good, Marianne. So grateful that you came on and so thankful for your preparation. It was very obvious that you put a lot of thought into this. You prepared greatly, and I think many lives will be blessed because of it. So, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and help us to answer the question that so many moms are asking, which is, what do I do if my
Right.
missionary is struggling with a companion that doesn't want to work as hard as my child wants to work, at least, at the very least. And so, just so many beautiful thoughts, and there's so many tangible tools. And like all of our episodes, I'll end with this. Remember that you, as mothers and children of God, have the right and access to personal revelation. So, take in the information, listen to what is said and taught, and then act for yourselves in alignment with what you feel is best for your children.
Mhm.
And we can do this. We can do this, mamas, right?
Yeah.
Hard work and great work. Nothing better. So thanks again, Marianne.
Thanks, Natty.